You're listening to the Patriot Nation podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation podcast. As always, you got Pat Lane here with my man, Matt St. Jean. And Matt, the Patriots have a game this weekend. It is utterly meaningless, except for the fact that they can go from the number 1 pick to the number 5 pick, I think. And
I think it's only 4.
Maybe it is only 4.
Not entirely sure, though.
But no, I think it's 5 because the Giants dropped to 4. And they have the same record as the Patriots.
I think there's some strength of record tiebreaker in there that they may have clinched to get to 4, but I can double.
Yeah, but then they would have a better record than the Giants.
Oh, wait.
I guess I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Who knows? It doesn't matter. Either way, 4 or 5. Maybe you're right. That is 4. Either way, not number 1. And God damn it, the Patriots are going to find a way to screw it up. They've screwed up everything all year long. They're going to find a way to screw it up and win. And instead of ending up with the number 1 pick, end up with number 4 or number 5. And look, is it the biggest deal in the world? No. Is there Andrew Luck out there? No. Right. But at the same time, our guy, Rich Hill, if you go by his draft value chart, and listen, the draft value chart is something that shouldn't necessarily be taken as gospel, but is a pretty good indicator of kind of how people feel about draft picks. The number 1 pick is worth 1,000 points.
It's like the full value, yeah.
Yes. The number 2 pick is worth 717. The number 3 pick is worth 514. The number 4 pick is worth 491. So let's just say they ended up at 4 if they lost, or if they won, I'm sorry. They would cut their draft capital in half by winning 1 game.
Yeah. Well, and
which is crazy.
A lot of that is because, and Rich would probably say this too, I believe he would. I can text him later to ask, but a lot of that value at the top is highly dependent on the specific prospects on the board.
Yep.
The value chart doesn't always work for those. But what is being reflected there is that the opportunity to pick the top quarterback in a draft, generally speaking, is a highly coveted thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you lose that ability, what you're really losing is potential future picks that you could get in a trade, which is where this would matter a lot for New England. If you get the first pick, then you're probably not actually picking it at 1 here. If you're the Patriots, I would find that hard to believe, even if a trade offer isn't anything super significant. Somebody, I think the best case scenario here for New England in a lot of ways is if one of those teams right in that top 4, so right now that would include the Titans, the Browns, and the Giants, offers you something to move up, and it's not going to be the Browns. So you're probably looking at the Giants there as kind of your best case if they're at 4 to give you something to move up.
Right.
I don't know what kind of draft capital it looks like that you're going to get in return, but it would be somewhat significant. Maybe you don't get a future first, but you're going to get some valuable picks out of that. Right. And most importantly, you're going to stay in the top 4, assuming 2 quarterbacks go in the top 4, which is what most projections have right now. That guarantees you one of the 2 best players in the draft in Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. If you get future draft assets and one of those guys who is probably be the pick at 1, if I had to guess, that would be great. But no, circling back to this game on Sunday, it exists in such a weird space in football. The Bills have literally nothing to play for in this game.
Right.
The preseason game to them. It is in the best interest of the New England Patriots for the future of the team, probably, to lose this game. Now, I will say, I think you could make an argument here that if they are unable to beat the Bills with the Bills backups in and the Bills having nothing to play for, that is a worse outcome than dropping in draft stock, because it just means they are that far away from
Right.
being good. But I kind of think they just might be in that spot anyway, that this is not a good football team, as we saw last weekend. So, Patriots without a lot to play for, at least from the fan perspective. But then Patriots players themselves really do have quite a lot to play for. There are jobs to be won on this team next year, and players are anyone who's on a contract in New England next year. Those guys are playing really, just for a camp invite to come back next year. There's a lot of guys on this team that if they decided to cut bait after this year, even if they're under contract, and said we're just going to go look for somebody else to even battle in camp for this job, I don't think anyone would bat an eye about that.
Right.
So those guys are fighting for a lot. Anyone on an expiring contract is trying to prove that they deserve a contract anywhere next season. And if you're the coaches, there's got to be at least a little bit of a feeling in there that you are coaching for your job right now.
Yeah.
So this game has no impact on the playoffs or who will be the champion of the NFL this season. It is in some ways being played only for record-keeping purposes, and yet it will be massively influential for a lot of guys who are fighting for roster spots potentially, and for the draft in the future of not just the Patriots franchise, but a number of teams at the top of this draft. And it's just funny the way this sport works out.
It sure is, isn't it? And, I just want to circle back to the drafting just really quick about the value, because Vegas is a team to me that really sticks out. The fact that, Brady is a part owner there, the fact that they have historically loved to make splashes, and the fact that they're almost certainly going to be looking for a new head coach. I don't know if Dion would leave Colorado. I don't know. But that would seem to be a perfect fit for them to get Shedeur Sanders and hire Dion and make this huge splash. And that can't happen without them drafting Shedeur. And to ensure you're going to get him, if you're going to hire Dion as your head coach, you better damn well get the player, right? And if that's the case, then you have to get the number 1 pick, because you can't trade to 4. Maybe he's the 4th best player. Maybe he's the 10th best player. But if that's your guy, you have to go get him. And so the Patriots, move now into the end of, into the end of that top 10, right? They're at 8 right now. Assuming they lose to the Chargers on Sunday, they'll stay at 8, depending on, if anyone else wins or whatever, you know what I mean? But you get the idea that they're going to be somewhere around there. And so, for the Patriots, I think 8 isn't a terrible spot to be. Now, that means you're not getting Abdul Carter. That means you're obviously not getting Travis Hunter, right? You're not getting those guys. But
unless you made another trade back up after, but that
right. That
possible, unlikely.
Yeah. And so you could do something like, what San Francisco did. What Miami did, where they moved back from San Francisco. They were at 3. They moved back all the way back to 12 with San Francisco and picked up a ridiculous amount of picks in the Trey Lance trade. And then they traded a first-round pick to get back up to 6 to draft Jalen Waddle. Yeah. So you could do something like that if you wanted to.
There's precedent for it.
Yeah. There's definitely precedent for it. I wouldn't love trading a future first-round pick for a guy like Abdul Carter. I love Abdul Carter, but I don't know if I'm trading a future first-round pick for him.
And I like some of the depth of the edge class this year.
Yeah.
But no, I think what we should do right now, since we're talking about the draft, let's walk through, what some of the scenarios could be here for New England.
Right.
So scenario 1, officially, with the Giants win last weekend. If the Patriots lose, officially, they will have the top pick in the draft. They are on the clock.
Yes, correct.
That is for sure locked in. If they win, I'm looking at this. I do believe they won't drop to more than 4th. Maybe here's the thing. The tiebreaker for draft order is not like head-to-head record or anything like that. It's strength of schedule.
Yeah.
And right now, the Patriots have a weaker strength of schedule than any team that has 4 wins. So if the Patriots get to 4 wins, they should be at the top of that group, which would put them at 4.
At 4,
At the worst. Now, that said, Jacksonville is kind of close to them. I had seen somewhere saying that they're pretty sure that we can't drop beyond that. Like, we can't drop past them, but I don't know if I can say it fully. So I think there is a chance.
I
If
can't
like
imagine.
it would seem
Yeah.
like every. I don't know for sure. So they're either 4 or 5 worst case. Now the other teams playing here, Tennessee plays. They host Houston. Does Houston have anything to play for in this game? Are they playing for seeding?
I
Let's look up.
I don't believe that they are. I think that well, actually,
No, I think they're locked in.
I think they're locked in because they have 9 wins. No, that's not true. Oh, they're the 4th seed, right?
I believe they're
so
locked
Houston's clinched the division. They're the 4th seed, and so theoretically, Tennessee has absolutely nothing to play for with a brand new head coach, right? Who like wants to get a win. I think there's a chance that the Texans, who have been hurt a little bit, rest some people, and the Titans maybe somehow pull off that victory. Yeah. If the Titans pull off that win, then they go to 4 wins.
So the Pats are at that.
So the Pats then theoretically would be at 3.
A top 3 pick, no matter what. Cleveland with Bailey Zappi at quarterback.
Yeah, is almost certainly going to lose.
They play Baltimore. It's a crazy spread on that game. That game shouldn't be remotely competitive. No. And like the Ravens are playing for something real. The Browns are not playing for anything. If that game is close at all, that would be a shock to many. So they should lose. And then the Giants this week. Who do the Giants even play?
Giants have the Eagles. And the Eagles are resting everyone too. The Eagles are resting everyone. So there's a chance the Giants win again.
So honestly, if you're the Browns, I think the Browns are in the 3rd spot right now, but I think you got to feel good. I mean, you never feel good if you're a Browns fan, given the state of that franchise. But the fact that you're 3rd, knowing that both the teams ahead of you are playing teams that are resting starters, and it's not like the Giants are likely to do anything from behind here. So like, I don't even think the Giants can jump Cleveland. So
the Giants cannot jump Cleveland because they're ahead of them right now anyways. Cleveland's ahead of the Giants anyways.
Yeah.
The strength of schedule isn't close enough, I don't think.
I don't think so. So, the Patriots, I think we can just assume the Browns are losing realistically.
Yeah.
So, if that happens, there is a scenario where the Patriots win and still pick 2nd.
Yeah.
Which
it would take some work, but
very possible. I would love to see rates on how often teams that rest starters win or lose. I haven't actually seen numbers on that.
I don't know. It's hard to know. I mean, well, I'll tell you, and here's the thing: Tennessee's playing on Saturday.
No, they aren't.
No, not Tennessee. Not Tennessee. Cleveland is playing on Saturday, so I guess it doesn't matter. Cleveland's going to win. Cleveland's going to lose. It doesn't make a difference. So then you won't know.
The other 3, I believe, are all the Giants, Eagles, Titans, Texans, Pats.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're all 1 o'clock on Sunday.
Bills, all 1 o'clock Sunday. Yeah. So we'll be following that, the hunt for the number 1 pick in live time with those 3. That could actually be fun if any of those games are close. So that could be entertaining. And I think the other part we got to talk about here, the quarterback trade aspect of this. So, how about this? I'm going to read through the teams in the top 10 right now in picks.
Okay.
You tell me. You know what? I'm gonna go through all the teams with losing records. To be honest with you.
Okay.
I'm gonna read off the teams. You tell me if you think they might be a candidate to trade up for a quarterback.
Okay.
Pick number 2 right now, Titans.
Yeah. I mean, Will Levis. Come on.
Pick number 3, Cleveland.
Yes. They won't do it, but they should be.
Yeah, I put that in the no category because I think they should, but I don't think they actually will.
Right.
With they extended Deshaun Watson's contract. Now maybe that makes him easier to cut. I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
They spread out the money.
I doubt it.
I think it's just an accounting maneuver, basically. Cleveland, okay. Well, they're a toss up here then.
But probably no. I would say I would lean probably more no than yes.
Number 4, the Giants?
Absolutely.
Yes. 5, Jacksonville?
No.
Yeah, there should be set. 6, Carolina?
No. I think they're good with Bryce Young. I honestly, I think, and this is where, and we'll get into the Mayo stuff later, but this is where when you talk about what Mayo and his staff have done this year, when you see how the Panthers have played, I mean, in mid-October, if you had told me the Panthers were in a good situation moving forward with Bryce Young, I would have laughed in your face. But he's looked like a legitimately pretty good quarterback the last month of the season or so. And I think he's really turned a corner and he's figured some stuff out. And so for me, I think that Carolina's in a pretty good spot with Bryce Young. They're not in a great spot, but I think they're in a pretty good spot with Bryce Young.
Or good enough. I will say this. I think if the quarterback class were like last year's,
Right.
let's say, I might put Carolina in a different spot. There's no prospect here to me that is better than what Bryce Young was coming out. So I don't think they would make a move here. Jets at 7.
Absolutely. They won't trade with the Patriots, but 100%. It sounds like Aaron Rodgers is gone, is what it sounds like.
He should be.
And
Now
if he's not gone, Garrett Wilson's gone. And so that's interesting.
Now, I will say, I do feel like the Jets, depending on what they do with the coaching, they might be a candidate to just sign someone or trade for a veteran. Depending on what they want to do.
Yeah.
They might pull themselves out of this before we even get there. I don't think they'd get Sam Darnold. I do wonder about this. If the Vikings end up holding on to Sam Darnold, and let's say they trade J.J. McCarthy, would a team like the Jets be willing to give up that pick?
I would do it in a heartbeat. I'd do it in a heartbeat. I think J.J. McCarthy would be the best quarterback in this draft.
He would be, yeah. Or up. Yeah, because younger than the other guys. And
Right.
like Shadur isn't like an elite level athlete.
No.
Cam Ward is not that guy either. Like JJ is in their class athletically, I think, probably. So yeah, he very well might be. 8 Vegas. Yeah, we already talked about this.
Yep.
Yeah. Chicago 9.
No.
New Orleans 10.
New Orleans is an interesting one because I could see it, but I also don't think they're moving on from Carr.
Yeah, it's
it's
a weird, because it's like they're in such a weird cap spot that they might be better off just taking who the best player is and waiting to draft a quarterback next year. They're locked into Carr though, money wise, for a little bit.
Yeah.
Which, on one hand, could make drafting a rookie more appealing because it's cheap, but on the other side, I don't know if they want to spend even more assets at that position in a draft class like this.
Yeah.
So
that's
they're
interesting.
weird. They're an X factor here, like another big question mark. San Francisco?
No. I think San Fran's going to extend Purdy. That's what I think, at least.
His contract, it's not up. Is he in free agency this offseason?
I think it's next offseason, but he's eligible for an extension this offseason.
Starting now. Yeah. I do wonder if you're San Francisco, if you could negotiate a trade. If you're not sure if you want to pay Purdy and somebody else wants to, do you trade him and try to make a move in this draft? I doubt it. Again, I don't think the quality of the prospects this year is high enough for it.
Right.
But like Trey Lance wasn't that prospect and they made that move. So we've seen them do this before when it may not have been advisable. Maybe we don't rule that out entirely. That should be like a 95% no.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Indy
at
no.
12. No.
Okay, so did you see the quotes coming out about Anthony Richardson?
Yeah, it's not good. But I still don't think that they're moving on from him.
But that's another one where if a team comes to you and it's like, hey, we want to take a shot at him. Again, with how weak the quarterback class is this year, I wonder if some of these quarterbacks start getting, especially because we talked about a lot of teams here that might be in questionable positions. And,
right.
You see a swap in here of some kind with a quarterback attached. I don't think they're going to move up on from him yet. But, I mean, is he playing this week? Anthony Richardson?
I don't think he is. He might be, but I don't think he is.
Because
their GM should be fired, man. Bauer should have been fired years ago. He's a nightmare.
He's a weird position because, like, when he's gone through some strings where he drafts really well, and I liked the approach with Richardson and everything. It just hasn't worked.
Do you know that this is?
They're in this constant stream of getting players who are like good, but who only ever max out at being good, and they can't find elite players. So then, and they also can't get a quarterback. So they're just in this weird spot where, like, they have like a whole bunch of these like decent receivers, and like their offensive line is pretty good, And they got some pieces on defense, but then like the sum of the parts just isn't
good enough.
doesn't.
Did you hear that this year Bauer took over in 2017? This is the first year that they've had the same starting quarterback in back-to-back years
That makes
since he
sense.
took over in 2017, which is insane.
Yeah,
They just haven't been able to,
They were on the veteran quarterback roulette wheel for a little bit there too.
just
Didn't work out.
bad one after bad one. Anyways, all right.
Yeah.
Dallas up next.
Yeah, well, their issue for Indy, real quick, is that if they bring back Anthony Richardson, there's a real chance by week 3 next year we know that he wasn't the real deal, and then the GM knows that, oh man, down at the end of the year, and we just got to finish out the season and see what happens. And that
unless they fire Ballard, if they fire Ballard and the next guy isn't sold on Richardson, maybe they do move on from him. You know what I mean?
No,
if you're bringing in a
saying
new GM.
I'm saying they're going to move. I'm saying it might become apparent early in the season that Richardson's not the guy, and that's what's going to get the GM fired.
Right.
And,
oh no, I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is that if they do fire Ballard this offseason.
Oh, okay. Before we even get there.
And then, the next guy that comes in says, nah, I'm not sold on Richardson, and then moves him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it basically keeps him for a year because he knows if it doesn't work out, it's not on him. And
or
he basically
either
buy
way,
a free year to go find that could be it. We'll see. And then Dallas at 13.
I don't think so. I mean, I think that they would consider it, but at this point, no one you get's gonna be better than Dak. I think Dak's fine, but is what it is.
Yeah, that I tend to agree, and what I will say is this: if there was a team not named the Raiders to go make a splash move,
that's very true.
Sanders, it would 100% be them. Yeah. For all the issues with Jerry Jones, he is very loyal to his guys. I don't think they would move on from Dak, and if they trade, because they would have to trade him presumably, and it would be if they traded him, it would be $103 million in dead money.
I don't know who the hell would, and I don't know who would take that contract. So,
well, you wouldn't have to take much after that.
I suppose that's true. Yeah,
yeah. There's the salary, but you can cut him at any point. So for if you're the Jets, that might be interesting to say, hey, we feel like we can make a run at this, or I don't know who else. Somebody in this group is going to miss out on a quarterback in this draft. So if you know in advance that you're going to miss out, maybe you can make this move. The only other team with a losing record is Arizona at 7-9.
No shot that they're moving on from Kyler. I think Kyler stinks, but no shot they're moving on from Kyler.
Maybe they're a candidate to me to take a quarterback like the second or third round if there's someone they like, to be like, hey, we're just going to bring someone in here just in case.
Yeah, just as a backup. Yeah, and then at that point, you can spin it as, he's a backup. Yeah. Well, kind of like the Patriots did for years of Brady, Yeah.
So that basically, if we're looking at who the real options are here, if the Patriots are making a trade back, it's almost definitely going to be a pick within the top 8 that they're going to keep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll be probably something in the top 4 with Tennessee or the Giants. Something at 8 wherever Vegas is, because I doubt the Jets are going to want to give all those picks to a division rival. Maybe they will. It's the Jets. You can't rule anything out with them, but
right, as Jared says, the Jets have traded with the Patriots before, but not like this. This is a different scenario. If the problem for me, if you're the Jets, is that if you move up to 1 with the Patriots, you're all the way back at 7 right now, right? Assuming that they lose to Miami on Sunday, they're going to stay somewhere around that 7-ish range. If I'm moving all the way back to 7, I'm getting at least next year's first-round pick, and if not a first-round pick in 2027, certainly a second-round pick in 2027.
It's going to be probably a trade package that's going to include 4 top 50 picks.
Right.
Probably 2 this year, and then
2 this year, and then whatever, right? So if you screw that up, you have set the Patriots, your hated rival, up for years to come. You can't take that risk. And it
would be a new GM doing that too. Their first move.
Yeah, it'd be real tough.
I think that is a very hard call to make. So you're in all likelihood trading with. So if you're the Patriots, what you're basically trying to do, if you get the number 1 pick, then is play the Raiders off of whoever in the top 4 is trying to move up.
The Giants.
Try to give somebody in the top 4 to give up just a little bit more than they should to outbid the Raiders, or just lie to them and tell them the Raiders are offering more than they are, and you gotta meet this bar for us to consider it.
Or take
4
the Raiders deal if the Raiders are gonna, if the Raiders are gonna overpay, take the Raiders deal. I mean, Telesco is their GM now, right? And he's a famous overpayer. So
and it's
and
him,
like I say,
the Raiders franchise that's desperate right now. And we don't know what the Tom Brady involvement is going to look like. I do say, I wonder if they're concerned. If the Raiders overpay to trade up with the Patriots for a quarterback immediately after Tom Brady gets involved there, especially, what I will say is this, especially after the Dynasty documentary, the fact that 2 of the 3 in the documentary were kind of designed to look good and one wasn't. There's going to be a lot of conspiracies that, Kraft and Brady are still friends.
I think they'd have to cross a lot of T's and dot a lot of I's to show everyone that there was no collusion. There's no, Brady was never on the phone. Kraft was never on the phone. This was a conversation strictly between GM and GM. You know what I mean? Like, however you did that, you'd have to show that, because you're right. Like, people would be like, that's a little fishy. You know what I mean? So this is a possibility we've been talking about since Brady was even mentioned as buying the Raiders, when
I said that
so
the
bad.
First episode that we talked about it or something.
Yeah.
Now another scenario here to consider if you're New England and you get the number 1 pick. If you look back to the Mitch Trubisky trade with the 49ers and the Bears, I think 49ers were at 2, Bears were at 3.
Correct.
And basically, I don't know how real any of this stuff was, but the 49ers had the Bears convinced that they were about to accept a trade offer from someone else to come up to pick 2 to take a quarterback. And the Bears said, we got to overpay to make sure we're in this slot to take the guy. If you're at 1, and Tennessee is at 2, let's say, and they like one of the 2 quarterbacks, and you're able to convince them that a team is coming up, then you might be able to do a small trade back to 2. And then if you just like someone there, you make the pick. And if you don't, maybe you do another trade back. You sell on both quarterbacks. I think that is something that would be on the table here as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So we'll see. There's endless scenarios as to what could happen. And again, I think, to me, it starts with keeping that number 1 pick. You have to keep the number 1 pick, because if you keep that pick, that changes everything. If you're at 4, this is a whole different conversation. You're not in these trade talks, because those quarterbacks are probably going 1 and 2.
Now, I will offer another scenario here, which is just that if the quarterbacks are a little bit underwhelming and the league just doesn't like them as much as we think they might, and teams really like Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, maybe other players in this class, I do think there's a world in which the Patriots pick 3 or 4, and one of the guys who's considered a top quarterback is still on the board when they get on the clock. Let's say if you drop to 3 and it's the Titans and Browns ahead of you, maybe the Titans take a quarterback they like, and the Browns say, yeah, we actually just really like Travis Hunter, and we're going to make this pick right now. Nothing you can do to change our minds. It's definitely possible. And if that happens, all right, then you might be in a quarterback trade back spot, even outside of the top 2. And we've seen, we get so used to the way quarterbacks get pushed up the board that we forget that sometimes they just don't get pushed up as far as we think they might. Sometimes teams just don't like them that much, or sometimes all the teams like one quarterback, and once he's off, all right, well, we're not making a move.
Right.
A lot of process to play out in terms of draft stock. So you'd rather be in the number 1 spot than not in the number 1 spot here, I think. But winning this game, doesn't eliminate trade back scenarios. It still means that you're going to get one of the top players in this draft in all likelihood. Like, it's still not the end of the world, I think, if you win this game, although obviously you want that top spot.
Correct. Yeah. And like you say, I mean, you'd like that top spot. Again, there was a world where Tennessee and the Giants both win, and you end up at 2 anyways, even if you win. So,
maybe Bailey Zappi pulls out a miracle.
Hey, you never know. That'd be wild, wouldn't it?
Imagine the scenario where Bailey Zappi pulls out a miracle for the Pats to pick number 1, and then the Raiders and Tom Brady make a move up. All the former Pats quarterbacks pulling it together.
That would be wild. That would be
Yes, it
wild.
would be.
So, all right, let's take an ad break, and then I have some things that we got to talk about as well. We'll get into.
All right.
So, all right, this ad, of course, is for Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Now, it's playoff time. It is now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. Now, they put their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. They also now offer MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Now, last week I missed. Man, we've gone through some ups and downs together, haven't we, people? But last week was a little rough. This week, though, here we go. There's some guys that got to hit some incentives. There's some guys that can hit some things. That's what we're going for. We're going Mike Evans for more than 89.5 receiving yards. I think he needs 86 to cross 1,000 yards for the season. Every single year of his career, he's hit 1,000 yards. I think Tampa's going to work really hard to get him that. I also have Baker Mayfield in that same game for more than 266.5 passing yards. I think that puts him over 4,000 passing yards for the season. That's a milestone he wants to hit. And Cortland Sutton for more than 68.5 receiving yards. That's going to actually get him an escalator bonus. I think it's 66 yards he needs to get a bonus. So just some small little things in here that I think on that last week people could be working for. And again, Tampa and Denver both need to win this weekend. So that's what we're looking at. Week 18 can be tough. Some of these teams don't need to win. So that's what I'm looking at this week. But what are you going to do? You're going to download the Prize Picks app today. You're going to put in the promo code CLNS. When you play your first $5 lineup, you're going to get $50 instantly. You don't have to win. You just have to put in the $5 lineup. Again, download Prize Picks, put in the promo code CLNS, and you get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, and we've talked a lot about, and I think a little unfairly, but we've talked a little bit about Dan Campbell, right? And comparing Mayo to Campbell and how the Lions were so terrible those first few years, right? And you say, well, yeah, the Lions stuck with their guy and this and that, but here's the issue that I have. Let's go back. Let's go back in time to 2021. Okay, when they took over, when Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell took over, what's the first thing they did? Remember the first move they made?
Trade Matthew Stafford.
Trading Matthew Stafford for $1 billion first-round picks in Jared Goff. They said, we love Matthew Stafford. He's got to go. They traded him. They got a ton of first-round picks back, and they got a quarterback back that they figured, you know what? He's fine. We can, work our way through it with Goff. Okay? Obviously turned out to be an incredible move, but at the time, it was, we're rebuilding. We know we're not good. So let's move on from this guy who is probably a Hall of Famer. And I think at this point, has kind of solidified his place in the Hall of Fame. But nevertheless, you make that move and you get multiple first-round picks back. I thought it was great. The draft, they're drafting number 7 overall. They draft Penny Sewell at number 7. Turned out to be, I don't know, maybe the best right tackle in all football.
Is that fair? Lane Johnson's the best, but yeah.
Lane Johnson's the best, you're right. So maybe certainly in the top 3 or 5, right? They draft Levi on Wazarike. I feel like that's right. I say it wrong every time. In the second round, D-end, Aleem McNeil in the third round, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown in the fourth round. You're talking about absolute knocked out of the park with Sewell. Definitely a hit on Aleem McNeil, and obviously knocked out of the park with Amon-Ra, right? Wazarike is fine. He's not great, but he's like He's a guy.
Useful.
You know what I mean? He's a useful player, right? Probably not. I don't know if you'd love to have that guy in the second round, but like he's at least a starter on the team, right? Or at least a guy that plays a good amount. And so when you look at, and they have Malafanu, who I don't believe even really plays for them anymore.
So he's hurt this season, I'm pretty sure.
What, he is hurt this season, but even before that, last year he only started 6 games. Like he's a guy that's a depth guy. As a third round pick before Amon-Ra. But the point here being that they drafted guys that have had serious impacts on the team. The next year they have the number 2 overall pick. They draft Aiden Hutchinson. Then they draft Jameson Williams, who we see what Jameson Williams can be when he's healthy. Kirby Joseph, who in my opinion should have been a Pro Bowl this year. Right. So like you look at what they have done, and again, they've set these, they've drafted the guys that they want to draft, and it's worked out. And again, look, there's one receiver that's been drafted in the first 2 rounds that hasn't looked good. One. And it's the guy you drafted. Like every other guy, and even A.D. Mitchell, who's struggled at times, has looked like at least a competent receiver at times. Like
Jalen Polk's stat line this year is something, and it's, we haven't gotten into it, but injury report this week, he's not practicing.
Yeah.
Oh, he is back at practice now. No, he isn't. No, he was still at DNP. Yeah. So, yeah, this might be it for Polk for the season. Under 100 yards in one of the worst, maybe the worst receiving core in the NFL. I do think also if you're going to make a comparison to that Lions team, which I think is, at least on the surface, it makes a lot of sense because both of them were inexperienced coaches in their first role, former players, supposed to be culture guys, inheriting a team that was very bad and, one that did not win a lot of games their first year. That Detroit team, I think one of the differences is that they did play, generally speaking, better football down the stretch. It wasn't perfect, but their 3 wins that year came all in December or January.
Yep.
The win in January was against the Packers team that was resting starters, so take that for what it's worth. They did have a tie in there. So it's 3.5 wins on the season, which is better than what the Patriots have now. Although
they do have one game left, of course.
If the Patriots win this week, then they would be, this is by win-loss record better than that Lions team. But I do think, the vibes are very important here. How you get to that point matters. And, the key differences here, Dan Campbell is the guy who very clearly knew what he wanted to do as a head coach and did it from day one. It didn't work at first, but he committed to a direction and went for it. Gerard Mayo has not done that. You mentioned the draft picks. They had good draft picks. Right now, this Patriots draft class looks like you got a star quarterback, so you get credit for that. Maybe a backup left guard, Layden Robinson, who has played better this week. Yeah, he's gotten, I think, a little bit better with each week since coming back in. So maybe he is somebody who can be a starter for you. And then I think Marcellus Dial has actually been pretty good on special teams. And that's fine on day 3, but that's your whole draft class with a lot of picks.
Yeah.
That is polar opposite directions here. I mean, I've made my preferences clear on this show. I think this is it for this administration. I think Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo can be good at their jobs in the NFL. They're guys who should go elsewhere, land with lower roles with other franchises, learn, grow, develop, and hopefully get back to this point at a later stop in their careers. Elliott Wolf, I'm actually, I think he had a bad offseason, but I also think he was in a tough spot. And, it's every GM has a bad draft class. Like that one bad draft class bothers me a lot less than the process of how you got there.
Right.
Free agency stuff, they had targeted signings, and clearly the goal was we're going to let young guys play, win some battles, and we're going to see where we are after the season. So I'm not super bothered by that. But I do think that where we are, I would start fresh. That said, I don't think that's what's actually going to happen based on reading tea leaves. So if they're back, should we, if we're following the Dan Campbell line here, first of all, you're going to have to make some coaching changes. They made coaching changes at the lower level. after Campbell's first year. So you got to do something like that. And if you're the GM here, you got to hit on this draft. Free agency is awesome. I think you can band-aid a lot of positions in free agency. You can get from bad to average at a lot of positions in free agency. You want to build a winner, you have to do it through the draft. This draft becomes, of the utmost importance.
This is the the single biggest offseason for the Patriots in a long time. And I know 2021 obviously was a big one. They spent a ton of money. They drafted a quarterback. You have the quarterback now, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to become a competent football team by next year. You have to. And so how do you do that? Well, you fill in some positions at free agency. I think you sign a tackle, you sign a wide receiver, probably sign a defensive end or, a D tackle of some sort, right? They have unlimited money. I think this is one of those things where, I would assume if you're Robert Kraft, you've been listening to the noise about you not spending any money and about you being cheap and you not, putting your money where your mouth is. If I'm Robert Kraft, I'm out there just giving out crazy money to people.
Be a mistake.
And that's what I would do, right? Because what the hell, you got to spend some money somewhere, and I'll tell you, my season tickets haven't gone down.
No,
they haven't gone down. So, we're still paying a ton of money to be there every weekend, and so it's become one of those situations. People don't even want to go. I mean, look at the game on Saturday. No one was there. No one was there. I'll tell you, and I said this to you. I think I said this on the show. I haven't left a game early since 2008. The last game I left early was the Wildcat game in 08. Yep. And I left early on Sunday. I was like, what are we even doing here? This is a waste of time. And I'm one of the diehard fans that never leaves early, that is at every game and always stays to the end. The people that aren't, they're not even showing up. And so, those are the things where it's like, you got to really spend and, and really try to get people back in the building. And I know you're concerned about a lot more than that, I would assume. But, you also got to worry about that stuff too. And so, to me, I'd bring in as many guys. Listen, how I feel about Nick Bolton, but like, if Nick Bolton somehow becomes available, I'd pay through the nose for Nick Bolton. Murph mentioned Josh Sweat, Javon Holland. I'd pay a ton of money for those. Like, it doesn't matter. It's just money. I don't know about Holland, but certainly Josh Sweat for sure.
Cam Robinson is a name there too.
I like Cam Robinson. I prefer
Stanley.
I prefer Ronnie Stanley if he becomes available. That's the hard thing is you don't know. You know what I mean?
Either way, it's an upgrade. What I will say is this. I'm not super concerned about if they're going to spend money this offseason. A couple of reasons. One, they tried to spend last year.
Yeah.
They went hard after Calvin Ridley. They offered Calvin Ridley $2 or $3 million a year over what I would have been, what I thought was too high for him. So the Titans went insane with it.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Titans feel good about that contract right now.
No.
That didn't help them all that much. So, and then Brandon Ayuk, the Pats had the highest offer in on him. He just, I think, didn't actually want to leave San Francisco and was just looking for leverage so that he could stay. The last time they went into an offseason kind of like this with big money to spend, like they went out and spent it in 2021, like we talked about.
Yeah.
And then you add in the pressure from the media and the fans, whether or not it's a good idea, I think they are going to spend money. I think the concern becomes if they say, but if there's a mandate from ownership to say we got to fix the wide receiver position, we got to make a splash there. If T. Higgins ends up staying in Cincinnati and Darius Slayton is the best receiver on the market,
Jesus Christ,
how good are we going to feel if this team overpays for Darius Slayton by a significant amount of money to go?
Not great.
You've got okay, good. We got another Kendrick Bourne. That's pretty cool. Like, he's not a bad player. He's a useful player, a starter in the NFL. It's not an X factor for you. You worry about them doing that at other positions. If Ronnie Stanley and Cam Robinson, if somehow neither of them hits the market, or even Cam Robinson, I like him. I think he's a band-aid. If he's asking for crazy money, all right, how long do you want to tie yourself into this?
Right. Well, and that becomes the issue when you don't draft well. You don't have a choice but to overpay for mediocre players.
Yeah. And that's the world that they have boxed themselves into here, and they're going to spend money. I'm not even remotely concerned about them not spending this offseason. I'm worried about them doing it the right way. I'm worried about them finding players that can give them some value. And you don't need, you got a quarterback on a rookie deal. You can spend a little extra money. I don't mind overpaying for players right now because you have the money to do it, especially with May and all that stuff. But the problem is if you do it and you have contracts that are super long and all that, you don't want to be in a spot 3 years from now where you want to make moves and you're handcuffed because of some of this stuff, or 2 years from now where you're handcuffed on this stuff. So you got to be smart about it.
And by the way, Murph mentions, he just said, trade for anyone else when you were talking about Slayton. I think there's a chance that a trade down could include a receiver, right? Now, I don't know.
Myers has been thrown around there.
Right? Jacoby Myers, maybe. If you're trading with the Giants, right, you're not going to get elite neighbors. But, I don't know if you're trading with Tennessee. Do they have anyone the problem is that there's not really anyone out there from a QB needy team, right?
Yep.
That's going to send you wide receiver.
Your opportunity for this is Brandon Ayuk, and it just didn't materialize. I don't think there's going to be someone, and it's DK Metcalf is someone who, in theory, could be available. He's an upgrade for them. I also think he'd be available for a reason. He has some injury issues, and for being a big receiver, he doesn't play like a big receiver. He isn't really a jump ball guy. He's a run past you guy.
Yeah,
which is great. He's very good at that. But with his injury history and at that size, I'm a little bit all right, I don't know how much I want to invest in somebody like that. And he'd be an upgrade, for sure. He'd be the best receiver for them.
Absolutely.
Best receiver May's ever played with. I'm a proponent of adding him to this team. He makes your football team better. But at what cost? What are we paying for him? Because if you got to give up a top 50 pick to go get him, no thanks. I know we've missed on a lot of receivers in this draft, but I'd rather throw that second in a rookie receiver, and you just keep doing that until you solve the problem. That's tough. So we'll see what the market looks like there. If you're gonna make a trade, I'd much rather trade for a tackle, but I think you can sign Cam Robinson. I think he's going to be available. I think you'll have the money to do it. He's just he's an upgrade on Vidarian Lowe. But Vidarian Lowe is probably the 40th to 45th best left tackle in the NFL. And Cam Robinson's probably the 20th to 25th best left tackle. So you're going from mid-tier, high-tier backup to a mid-tier, low-tier starter. It's an upgrade, but not game changer.
Right. And that's how much do you want to pay for him? And that's really what it comes down to is, are you willing to spend the money it's going to take to get him?
And and part of this isn't, it's not even about the average per year. It's that, it's going to be a 4-year deal or a 5-year deal.
Right.
And that means, okay, well, not only is he going to be our starter, but this means, for the length of the contract, well, you're not drafting a tackle in that span. Which is nice. You don't have to use the pick on it. But if he's not as good as you hope he is, you're in this spot where you can't move off the contract because he's not good enough to trade it, or you might have to absorb too much. But also, you got to play him because he's a starter level guy. So you're not drafting a tackle who could just be a better player for you. In some ways, that's where I like Ronnie Stanley better here because he's older and he can just be a 2-year Band-Aid for you. Same with Morgan Moses at right tackle, who I would assume is not going back to the Jets with everything we've heard out of that locker room. It just seems like
it kind of sounds like it, doesn't it? Yeah.
Patrick McCarry is another name I know people like. So you can.
I'll tell you. What's interesting for me? You mentioned the Jets. Devontae Adams is a guy that they've kind of said that they're going to move on from. He would be a guy I would be happy. I don't know if they're going to trade him, if they're going to cut him. I don't know what they're going to do, right? But especially if they cut him, of course, I would be willing to give up a good amount. If T. Higgins isn't available, I think Devontae Adams would be a guy, and you're not giving him a 4-year deal, but I'd be okay giving him giving him a 2-year deal for a good amount of money, because again, he instantly improves your room.
Yeah. Now, what I will say is this, and Adams is a bit of a unique character in general,
Yeah.
but I think in general, circumstantial factors are overrated when it comes to free agency. Calvin Ridley, they told a story about his girlfriend or whatever it was, and that's why he went to Tennessee. He went to Tennessee because they paid him more money. That's what NFL players want. And
That's correct.
what they consider more money can vary from player to player. Some want more guaranteed. Some want a higher average per year. What they're really looking for is respect. And respect in the NFL is just dollar terms. They want to know that they are valued a certain amount. And sometimes it's guaranteed, sometimes it's average per year. Like I said, Titans just beat you there and overpaid for him. Now, a player like Devontae Adams, who is older, is one of the few who I don't think that might make a difference. He might be somebody who says, I'm going to go see if I can get a ring somewhere. And even if you pay me a lot of money. Now, what makes him interesting, he's kind of always wanted to play with, quarterbacks he likes.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, and then he went to Derek Carr, and then he went back to Aaron Rodgers. He wants to be with quarterbacks he knows. So what does that look like for him next year? I have no clue. But if he is willing to come to New England, then I would love to have him. I think he could be a valuable veteran in the room. And May clearly likes the way Aaron Rodgers plays football too. So I'm gonna go ahead and assume he's seen a lot of Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams highlights, and they can find some chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So, Murph, a little drop a little knowledge. 2 kinds of free agents: one who's won and won a bag, and one who have money already and won a ring. I like that.
There's the third type, which is the ones who haven't won and won a bag. I think there's also plenty of those.
Yes, there are. That's true. But I like the general. The general point is a good one.
There's definitely something to that.
But yeah. All right, you want to do your ad read and then we'll kind of finish up here?
Yeah. Let's get into it here. I am, of course, going to be talking about Game Time. NFL playoffs are right around the corner here. Obviously, the Patriots won't be in it, but who doesn't love going to playoff games? I still remember I've been to one Pats playoff game, Pats Chargers, January 2019. Incredible environment. Love watching. That was one of those games you knew from the opening kickoff what was going to happen because all the Chargers are huddling for warmth in the middle of the field, and the Patriots players are just like, all right, let's get going. The Chargers were not about that game. You're trying to go to an NFL playoff game. Game Time Picks is going to filter out the fluff and make it even easier to get great seats for games like that. I was going to say this applies to the college football playoff too. If you're trying to go to one of those games, but yeah, just look at a game you want to go to. Hit Game Time Picks when you get in there. It's going to filter out tickets that are not the best value deals for you. So what it's going to show you, it's going to show you the cheapest seats in the arena, and it's going to show you the best value seats everywhere, all around different sections. So you can see, the cheapest price to sit in the different levels of the stadium. In addition to that, if you hit the all-in pricing button, the price you see is the price you're going to pay. It's just going to put all the fees right in it and makes it nice and easy for you to budget and figure out what tickets are in your price range. I have used this myself, and it works very, very well. I've been impressed by Game Time. You have seat views before you buy, on-time ticket delivery, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection. They got everything you want out of a ticketing app. So highly recommend it. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Man, they changed the They changed the ad read on me there, and it totally messed me up.
Well, you got it. You got it done.
I got there eventually, but damn.
So little Pat stats right here.
Mm-hmm.
I like this. Underrated OC candidate, Charlie Weiss Jr. Really interesting. Good. OC at Ole Miss.
They run a very RPO heavy offense down there.
Jackson Dart, of course, is their quarterback.
Trey Harris, wide receiver, probably second round
Completely
pick in the draft.
blowing out Duke right now.
Oh.
But that's a really interesting thing. He's only 31. He's pretty young, but that's a pretty good idea. I kind of like that.
That could be. I will say I'm kind of. I don't know if every coaching hire needs to be someone who came from the Patriots or has a tie to the organization.
Yeah,
I love the idea, but I think we want someone who's. I want someone who's good at coaching. I don't care what their background.
I would agree.
Was.
Well, but I do think that he, what's it called? I do think that he is kind of an up and coming coach, right? He's coached a little bit. He doesn't have a ton of experience, and so I don't know if I'd necessarily hire him as the OC. But I think bringing him in as if you hire a new OC as your quarterback's coach or as an offensive assistant or something like that, could be an interesting thing to kind of go from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, if we want to talk about college coaches who I think could be a fit in New England, if you want someone who I think has kind of walked the walk that Gerard Mayo has talked, that's going to be, Notre Dame head coach there.
Marcus Freeman. Yeah.
Yeah. He has been fantastic, young, active, energetic culture guy who also, clearly recruits players well, connects with young players, has developed them. Would he ever leave Notre Dame, at least at this point in his career? I don't know. But if they're moving on from Gerard Mayo, which again I said before, I don't think it's what I would do. I don't think it's what they're going to do.
Right.
I'm calling. I'm asking. He and Dan Lanning both. I'm asking about both.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know how other people feel about it. Steve Sarkisian too at Texas. If he would ever leave, I don't know how his stuff would translate, but I'm leaving no stone unturned. And I think some of those premier college coaches or guys, you make the call and you ask, and maybe they say no. And that's fine. Some of those guys are just made for college, but I think you got to ask.
Yeah, I agree. Also, our guy Todd Monken, which I think is a great call with Monken.
Yeah, Ravens offensive coordinator right now, former offensive coordinator at Georgia, or
I think so.
Offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I think so. But that Ravens offense is awesome. And he's got a lot of experience, obviously, with running quarterbacks and, with running a lot of RPO heavy stuff. And so I like that idea too.
Well, I think what's interesting about him is the way he's adapted concepts. The Ravens offense last year is very different from the Ravens offense this year. And like Lamar Jackson said, MVP caliber years in both. So being able to take what he did at Georgia, adapt it to an NFL quarterback, and then adapt again. When Derrick Henry comes in, you got to maximize the players you have. I love that. That's a great skill set to have. Obviously, his life gets a little bit easier when you've got Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry.
Of course,
but that's I do think I think we've spent a lot of time on this podcast talking about the players aren't good in New England. I think it's important to remember that it's also the coach's job to make the players play well, and they've Todd Monken has done that. They've elevated players on the Ravens. And we're not really talking about that Ravens offensive line that much, even though it's been kind of patchwork for a lot of the last 2 years. They had the draft guy. They got Roger Rosengarten in there.
Yep. Well, I think that's part of it, right? And you talk about, listen, I'm not saying that Jalen Polk would be a good player somewhere else, but he was a good player at Washington, right? He was a guy that was scouted. And people were like, this guy's really good. And, you listen to the Athletic Show or you listen to, any number of podcasts. And, and they say, number one, he's playing the wrong position. And number two, that he's not getting the opportunities that he needs to be getting, right? And again, I'm not saying that the offensive coordinator is the reason he's not playing well. He has just sucked this year. And, that's on him. But you do wonder, is there any way that a different coach would be having guys playing better, right? And I think that's a valid criticism to ask and a valid question to ask because, they've looked awful, almost completely across the board, especially at the wide receiver position, but at times even at running back, and so that's the hard thing. And Jared, by the way, I disagree. you say you can't make bad players play well. I disagree with that.
He said you can make bad players play
No,
well.
and then
He did.
he
I see it
changed it. You
there.
can't. But to
You can't.
me, look what the Patriots did for years, and it was Tom Brady, so it's not quite fair. But look what they did for years. You had guys produce here; they would leave and do nothing because you had a
The
system that
defense,
worked really
too.
well, and defensively too. Yeah, same thing. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, and it's harder to make bad players play well when the whole team's bad because
correct.
there's no way to hide their weaknesses. But that said, part of coaching is the development aspect too. You can take a bad player and make him into an average player. We
Right.
see that happen in the NFL all the time. Every season that happens. And you see average players develop into great players, which haven't, seen like the only guy who I can think of who's done that lately is Brendan Schooler, the
Right.
guy who, first of all, congrats on the Pro Bowl. Second,
Mhm.
the guy who's just worked with Matthew Slater consistently with their own thing. And it's like, all right, well, if this is the only guy who's really gotten better, like, and he's being coached into it by Matthew Slater there. So that tells me, and Jeremy Springer deserves credit there too, obviously.
Right.
But if he's being, developed into that, there's no reason that can't happen with other players. And I will say, somebody's got to lose games in the NFL. So, like, I say this, but even good coaches sometimes have teams which never happen. Like the 49ers this year, like under Kyle Shanahan, that team has been so hot and cold in general, where it's just
Yeah.
like they're either like in the NFC Championship game or they're picking in the top 10, it seems like, and there's just nothing in between. So, like, sometimes this just happens even when coaches are good. The difference here is Gerard Mayo hasn't banked any kind of credibility on this. So, if he is sticking around, you're going to have to, I think, see some real changes to the coaching staff below him because those guys are not getting it done as things stand right now.
Yeah. No,
Jeremy Springer can stay if we're keeping coordinators.
Well, and that's really what it comes down to. And you look at it and just say who else is worthy of staying. And I don't know if there's anyone else on the coaching staff that I really look at. You know what I mean?
I will also say Murph says the biggest issue here, the players Bill drafted to use 8 to 10 plays a game are being relied on to be starters. I would argue one of the issues there is Bill drafting players he used for 8 to 10 plays a game.
Right.
That puts you in a bad spot when you have guys who, can't get or stay on the field. It's some of it's technical role stuff and guys not being able to take on additional roles.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if any coach, like with this receiving core, it's tough to tell how much coaching, like Jalen Bulk stuff feels like almost entirely mental.
Yeah.
He's got the yips, so I feel like the best case for him is go take a month off. Do not think about football for a month after this and come back clean slate, refreshed for year 2 and see if you can get something better out of him.
But like again, the thing for me is that I think Kendrick Bourne's a pretty good player. Why are we not getting more snaps to him? Why are we not giving him more designed plays? Why aren't we getting more designed plays to Pop Douglas? Like why isn't Kayshon Boutte getting 10 targets again? It's just so frustrating to see that.
Drop those targets, but
and listen, you're right, but again, it's all about the young guys. We say it's all about the young guys, all about the young guys, all about the young guys, and it's like Polk and Baker aren't playing, and again, maybe they're not that good. Fine. So then we should be giving basically all the snaps to Pop and Boutte, and we haven't really been doing that. A little bit, but when we absolutely had to, and then the offensive line drives me insane with the Caden Waller stuff and the Layden Robinson stuff, and it's like you wanted to see these guys, but now it's like it's just so frustrating.
When I do think like Layden Robinson, I do think I kind of like the way like they started him.
You're not
on
wrong.
The bench
the Layden Robinson thing, I think it's okay.
They did try to develop him. They put him back in for that Titans game. It was a disaster. You pull him. You try again later in the season. It's gone better here on the second attempt to integrate him. And this is, I think, kind of the big issue right now with this team is that you can't commit to like, oh, we're going to play the young players. Because the young players aren't good. Like it's Javon Baker. Like what's his face? He's still the corner that the Chargers got in that trade has more catches than Javon Baker does. And it seems to be mental. Like it's insane. Baker got more reps last week. he doesn't look that impactful on the reps. He does, like he had one good rep against Tennessee earlier this year, where if May was able to get the ball out, it probably could have been a
Yeah.
touchdown. But I think his first snap actually.
But how many
Outside
how
of,
many snaps he played though?
well, he's not playing that many, but it seems like part of this is obviously coaching if he's not developing, but it does just kind of seem like the receivers are bad and the young guys are worse.
Yeah. And listen, maybe
Kayshon
that's totally
Boutte,
true. Yeah.
Boutte right now is a guy who's been super inconsistent week to week. Still has drop issues. Like he seems like a guy who's a wide receiver or four or five on a good
Yeah.
team. At this point, so
But
like
he's a serviceable player. He seems like at least a serviceable player.
you can
Not
put him
reliable,
under.
but at least serviceable. You know what I mean?
Another in the Kendrick Bourne mold of players, probably.
Yeah.
But still not nearly as good right now. So you end up in this weird spot where you want to play the young guys. They're playing the young guys like on defense, the defensive line, but like young guys aren't good. They're doing it at corner too. Alex Austin getting reps. I say Bolden's gotten reps. The offensive line we talked about, they literally cut a guy so Layden Robinson could play. Strange is going to get 2 weeks back to back here at center. It looks like. We'll see if they play Caden Wallace at right tackle. But like it kind of became apparent why Caden Wallace wasn't starting at right tackle when he went out there. He looks just as bad, if not worse, than DeMontre Jacobs, who is, and
Right.
you end up in this spot where it's like,
No, you're not wrong.
Quality reps to put. It's
you're
just
not wrong. But again,
all the players are bad.
How many reps are we getting? How many reps are we getting? Right?
Well, they get reps in practice.
That's fine. I don't give a shit about practice. DeMontre Jacobs has looked awful for months. He's looked awful for months. Caden Wallace got second-hand snaps, got like second-team snaps, and he got what, like 15? What the hell are we doing with that? Like that doesn't show me anything. He had a few bad reps. He also had a few good reps. So it's like, you're going to tell me that maybe he doesn't deserve the reps that he gets, but like he's a rookie. DeMondre Jacobs stinks. We know that. Okay, don't play him. Like, just don't play him. I don't understand what the problem is. Like, we know he sucks. We need to see if Caden Wallace can play. Not playing him last week was a mistake.
Well, not playing him might actually be the answer to your question of can he play? Like to see if he can play. But the other thing, like you're 9 to 5, your daily job, the football player, is to practice. You do that, and then you go to the game, and that's your reward for the practice, basically. And this tells me that Wallace has not been good enough in practice, and that could just be the rehab from the injury, and he just hasn't had time to integrate. I would hope he plays more this week. I think the fact that he got on the field last week is like, all right, if he's healthy enough to go out there, let's see him on the field. I do agree with your point there, but if he's not playing again, they're drafting some bad players, man.
Right.
Like this is where
and it's predictably bad. It's predictably bad. Like they drafted Caden Wallace, and I hated the pick instantly. Right? They drafted Jalen Polk, and Murph and multiple other players were saying he's the third best receiver on Washington. Why are you drafting him in the second round? What are you doing? And by the way, Jalen McMillan looks pretty damn good in Tampa Bay right now.
And I liked the pick for New England, but I liked McMillan more as a prospect. Like I thought Polk was third best of the receivers, and I also thought they were all top 50 guys.
Yeah, right.
My read on it. I think I'm probably wrong on that. The way Polk has looked, but like, man, it's just
it just hasn't worked.
I don't mind GMs missing on draft picks every once in a while. The best guys miss on draft picks all the time. It happens. That's the life in the business. The issue is when it's bad process, because you can have the exact right process and handle a draft perfectly, make 10 or 12 picks because you're trading back and getting the right value and all that, and just not come away with a good player. Like it happens even when you do everything correctly. And the fact that you're going to make your odds worse by reaching on guys throughout is, tough to swallow. You're just hurting yourself there. You hope that if it is Elliott Wolf who's back, year 2, got more of their own scouts in the building, changed their internal processes. That last draft, you're doing everything based on Bill's scouts, Bill's methods. That's what those guys have been doing the whole year. And now you got to take that information and convert it to what the new GM wants. Next year should be a little bit, and now this year should be a little bit more streamlined. But like, it's the results. Just if we're sticking with this group, this leadership group on the football team, Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo, the results have to improve. You have to have better hit rates with your free agents, better hit rates with the guys that you draft. You have to see the coaches turning players into better players than they were the year before or the game before. And it just has to happen. Otherwise, you're going to be out of a job. And I think my worst fear here is Gerard Mayo enters next season as a coach on the hot seat in the Matt Eberflus role from last year, basically. 3 games into the season, becomes apparent that nothing has gotten better and that this is a waste of time. You wait the whole season, things go poorly again. You start from scratch again. Now Drake May's in the 3rd year of his rookie contract where you're hoping you could be maximizing things and really putting a team together, and you're starting from scratch again. And now you got a guy who's trying to do it with free agents that he didn't sign and trying to make that work. Maybe those players are good, maybe they aren't. And things aren't going to gel right away, and you're still starting from, maybe another top 5 pick. Like, that's a possibility that they could be picking up here again next year. And if they're picking up here again next year, it's an opportunity to draft another talent. Also means the guy they picked this year in the top 5 probably wasn't very good. So, you're in a tough spot there. So you're just going to be a team that still without that much talent, resetting again. Quarterback has to learn a new system. And you're just, stuck in this state. And to be in that state when you might have a good quarterback is tough. I will say this. I don't want I'm not going to root against the Patriots on Sunday. If I see them on my screen, it's kind of hard to root against them, even if it's in their best interest to lose. If they win and they do it because Drake May has a very good game, I think that's okay. Because the key to this team's success is Drake May playing well. If they lose a game and they lose this game 9-7, and May has a clunker, all right, we might have a problem then, because you should be able to score on this defense in this situation, even with the team that they have.
Right.
So, yeah,
it's gonna be really interesting. We'll see what happens. Supposedly Joe Milton might be getting some snaps. Now that's probably garbage. Who knows?
I don't think that's. They said. I saw. I didn't listen to the press conference. I did see a headline that said May was going to play the whole time.
Yes, but they did also say that he took some non-scout team reps and might be suited up for the game.
So instead of being the emergency quarterback, he'll be the backup.
He'll be the backup. But to me, why do that if you're not going to play him at some point? That's the way I look at it. At least.
To tell him that you think he's done a good job during the season, and he's earned, being able to say that he was on the active roster for a game.
I guess
May is the direction of the franchise. You're not pulling him out of this game unless he's hurt, or the game is out of hand. I don't think it is.
Unless you treat
it's not. It feels like a preseason game, but importantly, it is not. The head coach and the GM are both going to be judged on the record of the season, which is going to include this game. You're going to be judged based on stat totals and efficiency metrics for the season that will include this game. When we talk about the Lions and Dan Campbell's first year, nobody mentions that one of those 3 wins came against backups in a meaningless Week 18 game. They just said they won. That's right. That's what gets talked about. So it's meaningless, but it's not a preseason game to those players. It's at a higher level of preparation and intensity.
Oh, that I agree with. That I certainly agree with. I'm just talking about from a coaching perspective. But all right, you want to get into our picks for the week and then kind of get out of here?
Yeah, I think we should do it.
Do you want to do prize picks lineups first?
We can do that.
Let's do that, and then we'll talk about ours.
Yeah. You want me to go?
Sure.
No, both of mine are going to be in the same game. I like doing this.
I like that.
We're going for the Saturday night game, which is going to be a lot of fun. First of all, give me T. Higgins more than 76.5 receiving yards at Pittsburgh.
I like that.
And also give me Najee Harris more than 45.5 rushing yards against the Bengals.
All right.
Taking a player on both sides of that.
I like
also,
that.
Bengals breaking out the orange pants again this week. How's that for something fun?
That's interesting.
We'll talk about that when we get into the picks, but yeah.
That one's interesting.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. All right, should we look at? Oh, you still got to give yours.
Yeah. So I have mine. I'll read it again. I read it during my during my ad read, but I'll read it again. I have Mike Evans for more than 89.5 receiving yards, Baker Mayfield for more than 266.5 passing yards, and Cortland Sutton for more than 68.5 receiving yards. Again, I'm going with there's a lot of kind of information out there about escalators and bonuses and things like that. And so, that's something that I'm angling for in that situation. I also was going to take Saquon, but of course Saquon's not playing. So that one's out, but what are you going to do? So also Murph, thanks for stopping by. Supposedly Murph might be coming by the tailgate this weekend. So that might be fun. He's going to the game. I'm going to the game. That could be fun. So we'll see. All right, let's get into, you want to get into our picks?
Let's take a look at going into week 18 here. I'll take a look at week 17. All the same picks, all correct. We all like
5-0.
Yeah.
Killing it.
So, as a result of that, we are tied. We are each 57-28 on the season coming into the last week.
Crazy.
So it's week 18. It's a little bit of a weird schedule. So for the games that we picked for this week, I picked games that were like kind of relevant to one another. So we are going with the AFC North battle. Both of those games happening on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
We're going with the NFC South battle. Both of these games happening 1 o'clock on Sunday. And of course, game of the week, maybe game of the year.
Yeah.
Vikings at Lions on Sunday night football. We start out with easily the worst of these games Saturday afternoon.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if any game, by the way, has had the stakes that the Vikings and Lions have had. I mean, you think about a team's going to win 14 games and not host a playoff game, which is crazy to me, and probably not host a playoff game at all. Barring some sort of miracle. So it's a wild scenario. But anyways, Browns at Ravens. I mean, like, who the hell is picking the Browns in this case? I mean, I don't even know. Give me the Ravens minus 20. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll skip ahead here. It's going to take a horrific collapse in the best game Bailey Zappi's ever played in his life at the same time. In this one, the Ravens need to win, I think, to lock up the AFC North, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So
especially since they're playing in the early game, right?
Yeah. So I think the Ravens are going to clean up here nicely, which leads us into the Saturday night game. Bengals at Steelers. Steelers might not be playing for AFC North contention here, depending on what happens in the early game. But with a win, the Steelers are kind of jockeying between the 5 and the 6 seed in the AFC with the Chargers.
Yeah,
so that is important for them. Bengals, they need a win and a Broncos loss, I believe, to get in. And they might also need a Dolphins loss. I don't know.
They need a Dolphins loss as well. They have to have both teams lose.
Yeah. So Bengals hoping for a miracle run, trying to shoot that laser into the Death Star there, if you will. Do they pull out their legs successfully, Pat?
What's crazy is the Steelers have to have this game. They have to have this game because you don't want to end up as a 6 seed playing the Ravens, right? And AFC North football is fine, but think about you going from the Texans to the Ravens. That's a tough draw. But the Bengals have been such a Cinderella story. They've been playing so well. I mean, they were 4-8 for God's sakes. They've won 4 in a row. Joe Burrow's playing outside of his mind right now. And I also think I honestly think that Burrow should win MVP. If they win this game, I think Burrow should win MVP. To win the last 5 games, to put up the numbers he's put up, to do the things that he's done. I mean, he has single-handedly won them multiple games in this 5-game stretch. And even if they miss the playoffs, I think he's just been so far and away the best player this kind of coming down the stretch. So anyways, all that being said, I'm going Bengals on the road against the Steelers on a Saturday night.
Yeah, I'm going to go the same way as you here. This Bengals team is red hot right now. They're playing for a lot. They're playing with a heart. It's a fun team, man. I'm not picking against them in a game like this. No, the Steelers they've kind of come back down to earth. Like I think these teams are probably roughly even.
Yeah.
It's just that Steelers had a little bit better luck than the Bengals over the course of the season, but yeah, I'm going to take the Bengals in that one.
Yeah, I like it. All right, Panthers and Falcons. Again, NFC South, you get the Falcons and the Bucks jockeying for the number one spot here. The Panthers, as I said, look like a competent football team. The Falcons have looked better with Michael Penix. They have something really to play for. If they lose this game, they're out. And so, they really have to win this game. I just think the Falcons are just better than the Panthers, right? And by the way, I could be totally wrong about this, and I could see the Panthers actually winning, but I'm going Falcons here.
I will say, the way you led up into that, this would be the most Falcons game ever to lose.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I do think they pull it out, though. Home must-win game. They have a little bit more spark now that Penix is in there. Here's the thing: the Falcons' defense is bad. There's a world in which Bryce Young ends this year on a hot streak, not a hot streak, but a hot performance, and shreds them, and the Panthers go in and just score a lot. The Falcons can't match that, but I think this will just be some sloppy NFC South football. The Falcons win a close-ish game.
And by the way, I think Michael Penix has been good for the Falcons. I think that at some point down the line, we're going to look back at that Michael Penix pick and say, that was a really good pick. Michael Penix is a really good quarterback. We're still going to look at the 2024 Atlanta Falcons and say, what the hell were you doing? Because you paid Kirk Cousins $100 million guaranteed, And so, again, and I think I've said this before, but my issue was never with the pick. It was the fact that you paid Kirk Cousins and you made the pick. You can't do both. You got to choose one of them. Doing both was stupid. And so, nevertheless.
The other NFC South game happening at the same time, Saints and Bucks. So Bucks, if they win, they win the division.
Yes.
Also, if they win and get some help, they can get all the way up to the 3 seed. What they win and Rams lose, yeah.
Right.
Which that would set up there's a group of things happen here at the same time. If the Buccaneers win this game, if the Seahawks win their game against the Rams, and the Lions end up losing, then we could get a Jared Goff at Matthew Stafford 5 versus 4 playoff game.
That'd be wild.
Would be a ton of fun.
It sure would be.
Yeah.
It sure would be. So I think the Saints are just garbage. And I think Darren Rizzi's magic has worn off. And I think the Saints are going to get absolutely just have their doors blown off by the Buccaneers. And the Bucs, I think, win this one pretty easily.
Right there with you. I think you nailed it. Bucs are just a better team right now. Not necessarily a great team. Depending on who they get in that first round matchup. I don't know if they're going to be. Let's see. Who are their potential matchups here?
Well, so assuming the Bucs end up as the 4 seed, right?
They'll play the loser of the Lions Vikings.
They'll play the loser of the Lions and Vikings. And they're going to get absolutely destroyed by whichever team that is, because those teams are both far superior to them. Now, what's interesting is that if it's the Lions that's in the 5 seed, their defense is so banged up, and Tampa's offense has been crushing it lately. There's a world in which there's a wild shootout, and Tampa could theoretically win that game.
Well, and we could have the Lions have a couple potential rematches from last year, because they played in the playoffs last year too, the Lions and Buccaneers.
True.
So we could get rematches of either the wild card or divisional round games here right away. If the Bucs get up to the 3 seed, they're probably hosting the Commanders, which would be a fun game.
That'd be a fun game too.
And then if the Cowboys beat the Commanders and the Packers beat the Bears, then they would host Green Bay. I don't think that would be a competitive game. I think Green Bay would probably go down there and smoke them. But
I think so too. But we'll see.
Yep.
All right. So here's the deal.
Our whole thing comes down to this game.
That's right. Just like the actual NFL playoffs, we are tied for the year.
Yep. Should we instead of revealing these individually, should we reveal both of our picks here at the same time?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
I'll reveal the picks, then we explain.
Yeah.
All right. Final game of the season. 1 seed in the NFC on the line. More importantly, winner of our year-long picks competition on the line. Pat is taking the Lions. I'm taking the Vikings.
I love it. Since I usually go first, I'll go first. I just feel like the Lions have come this far. They've fought through so much adversity this year. They've had a billion guys get hurt. Goff has played out of his mind. They're at home. The Lions, I don't think have ever won 15 games ever in a season. And I don't know if they're necessarily a team of destiny, but I really love what they're doing this year. And I just believe in the Lions. And listen, I said it earlier in the season. I'll say it again. I said I was never going to pick against the Chiefs. And then I said I was never going to pick against the Lions. And so I'm sticking true to that this last game of the year. And I'm also rooting for the Lions too. And so I really want to see them in this game.
You know me, I've been looking for the upset pick on either the Lions or the Chiefs all year long.
Yep.
I feel like I'm finally getting it here. This is, I think, a couple things. This Brian Flores defense against Jared Goff, it's one of those things that can go really far in either direction. It's high volatility. I think they might get something here. Also, the way the Vikings have been playing on offense, combined with what this Lions defense has turned into with all the injuries, man. There's a world where the Vikings are able to go into this game and score, get the Lions into a little bit of a hole, and then it just turns into a nightmare for them.
Yeah.
So we'll see how this actually ends up playing out. But I do genuinely just think the Vikings are a better team right now. They're playing better football. They are healthier. More importantly, they're going to have the best player on the field, Justin Jefferson, which probably matters in a game like this.
Oh, yeah.
The Lions have been a very good team. They've also been lucky. You have to be a good team in the NFL. And maybe their luck runs out a little bit right here.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it's one of those really interesting scenarios where, I think whichever team. Well, here's what's fascinating to me, right? Let's just say it doesn't matter who it is. Let's say it's the Lions or the Vikings. Let's say it's the Lions that lose. Okay. They end up as the 5 seed. They play most likely either Tampa. Well, the 3 options they could play would be Tampa, the LA Rams, or the Falcons, right? Those are the 3 options of the teams that they could play in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
The Lions famously are a team that doesn't do great in the cold. Okay. So fine. Now they play one of those games. Well, what happens? What happens is that they play either in Tampa, where it's nice out, in LA in a dome, or in Atlanta in a dome.
Yeah.
If they win that game, chances are both the Eagles and the Rams win, although the Commanders have a chance to beat the Rams, right? Theoretically, at 6, the Commanders have a chance to win. But let's just hypothetically say that both those teams win. Now they go back to Minnesota in a dome, right? And then there's a chance they'd have to then play Philly or whomever it is outside, right? Which obviously would be a challenge. But there's a chance that even if the team that loses doesn't host a home game until the NFC Championship game, they're not even playing outside. And so it is, although it's obviously not an easy path, it's not as bad as it might have looked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I will say this. There's still a world here where, the Lions would have to go to Philly. If they might lose this game, win a playoff game, they'd have to go to Philly.
Certainly
that
possible.
would be a nightmare for them.
Yeah.
There is also, this team might just be run out of gas a little bit with where the defense is. And if that's how it is, might not matter where they're playing or who they're playing. That might just be kind of out. And a team like Tampa could take them out. A team like the Rams could take them out. They allowed 34 points, the Lions did, to San Francisco last week. Or throw out that Bears game because I don't know what the Bears are. They lost to the Bills, allowing 48. They allowed 31 to the Packers and almost lost that one. Yeah, they another Bears game in here where really could have lost that game. The Bears coach got fired because of the way it went. 2 good defensive performances before that, but you're playing the Colts and the Jaguars. I don't know how much stock we're putting into that. So, this is a team that has been up and down. More, the defense has the signs of weakness right now, and I think this is the week that finally ends up being their undoing. Now that said, I'm just looking at some of the totals right here. The Lions are second in yards, first in points on offense. 9th in points on defense, but 22nd in yards. So you got a big disparity there. But the Vikings, they're top 10 in points for offense and defense. They are 12th in yards on offense and 16th on defense. So something, very similar story there. And the best offense in this group has been the Lions offense all year. So maybe that just carries them to victory in this.
Certainly could be. Yeah. So it's it's really interesting. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I think that wraps it up for these picks. Well, it'll all come down to that last game. For this Pats game, we didn't really talk about the specifics of the game, but Bills favored only by 2.5 points. It's supposed to be a close one according to the lines. I kind of don't think it will be a close one. I think it'll be high. I think this is one where it will find out quickly if the Patriots starters outclass the Bills, 1B unit, 2A unit, whatever you want to call it. And, either Pats win this game, 16-3 type of thing, 20-7, like low scoring, but clearly taking it away, or the Bills might score a couple times. And I feel like this will end up being a blowout one way or the other. I don't feel like this game will actually end up being all that close.
I think you're probably right. I just, if this game ends with like a 10-3 victory for the Patriots, it's just like a nightmare scenario. It's just terrible because then you still don't even feel good about it. You know what I mean? So let's just pray to God that that's not the case.
And who's starting? Well, Josh Allen's going to get the start at quarterback, but who's actually playing? Is it
Trubisky?
Yeah, Trubisky's bad, and he's a mobile quarterback. He can run on you.
Yeah.
He's had good. He's not bad.
He's not good.
He's a bad quarterback by starter standards. He's a good quarterback by backup standards.
Right.
So
yes, that's actually a good way to put it. Yeah.
And there's Drake May is still young and high variance. It's not crazy at all to think that Mitch Trubisky is the better quarterback on the field on Sunday, and that's not some poor reflection of May. It's just that May's gonna have up and down games, and the defense just saw him and can adjust. And Trubisky comes in and just runs an offense that's been pretty good and does whatever he wants.
Right. And it's
I think what helps the Patriots in terms of playing for a win in this game, you just saw the Bills. You executed a game plan that mostly worked, and you get the opportunity to go execute it again with small adjustments, clean up the mistakes, and play against the Bills team that's not really going to be game planning for you. I don't think the Bills game planned for the first game they played against one another, really. And they're not going to do it for this one. So you know that you can run essentially the same thing back out there and probably have it be successful. That's just, can you get stops in the running game? That's where there's a world where this turns into a Patriots, sizable win because they can just go out there and do it. And if Ramondre doesn't fumble, you don't have a lateral in your own end, and the running back isn't able to take advantage of some of these gaps the way James Cook did last time they played, you just get a different result.
It's a fair point. There's I'm trying to think of the exact thing because I want to get it right, and I'm not going to be able to get it right, but that's okay. They read it on PMT. Let me just see if he maybe retweeted it, although I don't think he did.
Mm-hmm.
But it was that 3 head coaches in NFL history, or maybe not NFL history, 3 head coaches in the last X amount of years, and I'm not sure exactly how long, maybe since the merger, that 3 head coaches have been around for the season to get the number 1 pick and then actually used the number 1 pick that they got from the season.
I would have to imagine at least one of those coaches is Hugh Jackson, right?
It's not,
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Do the Browns not have the first pick one of those years? Or do they trade back?
The Browns, I don't think they ever had the number 1 pick. They had the number 2 pick.
Oh, they had the
Uncle Buck.
Number 1 pick when the, what do you call it? Hold on. I think they had the number 1 pick after going 0-16, of course. I thought they had it after going 1-15, unless there were 2 1-15 teams that year.
Yeah. His Uncle Buck right here is what he said. Since 1936, in the first draft, I guess it's only 3 teams drafting number 1 did it with the same head coach as the previous year. 1977 Tampa Bay Bucks. You were right about Hugh Jackson. The 1992 Indianapolis Colts and the 2017 Cleveland Browns.
What was the Colts team you said? What year?
92.
Let's go see if that Colts team was any good.
I think that's Steve Entman. They drafted at number 1.
Okay, so the Colts actually, the other 2 teams in that list stank to high heavens. The Colts did go from 1-15 to 9-7.
Yeah.
Overnight. Wait, but it doesn't say that it was the same coach.
And again, I don't know if that's correct or not, but
Yeah,
I'm just reading off.
That looked like they had a new coach.
92 Colts, Ted Marchibroda.
Yeah, Marchibroda's first year they went 9-7, and then they went 4-12 the year after, and then 8-8, then 9-7, and then new coach.
Oh yeah, Ron Meyer fired as the head coach. So the 92 Colts are out then, if that's the case.
The only 2 teams then are that Buccaneers team, which was infamous for being absolutely atrocious, and the Browns team that went from 1-15 to 0-16. I do not want to be on this list.
Yeah, no. Although, see, they're saying 2020 Bengals, someone said. Although maybe that's not true. The 2020 Bengals, when did Zach Taylor take over? I thought he took over that year.
I don't remember what year he took over, but they also didn't have the number 1 pick. Well, no, they had the number 1 pick. Oh, to pick Burrow, you're saying.
Right. Yeah, so see, this is totally wrong. His tweet was completely false. I don't know if it was intentionally false or not, but his tweet was totally wrong.
Yeah, because Zach Taylor definitely did.
Zach Taylor was in 2019. They were terrible.
And then they took Burrow. But then that's also. But I also don't think that's a good example for this because they were bad because they didn't have a quarterback. They got a quarterback and they got better. You don't. Right. If your team has a quarterback and stinks enough to get the number 1 pick, you always either see a new coach or someone's getting fired.
Yeah. No, it's true.
The Browns team, the one that went 1-15, that didn't have Baker, did it? Did they draft Baker? When did they draft Baker?
I think they drafted Baker in 17 or 18.
No, he was the number 1 pick that they got after the first one.
Yeah.
Right, let's try this. No, he was the first round pick they got after they went 0-16. So he wasn't part of either of those seasons.
Really?
Yeah. So they still didn't have a quarterback, and then they still didn't have a quarterback.
Was 2017 Myles Garrett?
Yeah, I think Myles Garrett and Baker were their back-to-back first overalls though.
So. I got you. Yeah, Myles Garrett was first overall, and then in 2017, and then 2018, after the Browns were terrible again, then they drafted Baker at number 1.
Yeah. Not a list you want to be on.
No.
This is, which is also like it's the difference between picking 1st and 4th might be whether Mayo keeps this job.
Yes,
because it's also going to be embarrassment for ownership and things like that, like other factors. So.
Right. He did say unverified. Dan is right. Hank did say it was unverified, but it's pretty wild that he just tweeted this out like as fact, and it's not even close to fact.
Yeah. Well, that's Twitter for you.
So, but what are you going to do? I had heard it. I was like, I wonder if that's actually true or not. And then, no, it's not true at all. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, we'll see.
Yeah. Early, we'll end the show with something fun. Early pick for you. We have the semifinal matchups for college football playoff.
Yeah,
who's playing in the championship game. The games are still a week away.
Yes,
next round. But who's playing in the championship?
So, I really, really want to say Notre Dame. I really do. I don't know if they can win that game against Penn State. Penn State's really good. I wonder what that injury to Abdul Carter really is. If it's a serious injury or not, I'm not sure. I don't think we've heard yet. Because the game was just yesterday. I don't think we've really gotten an update on him. Curious to see what that looks like. I also don't know if their offense can can keep up with Penn State's offense, although Notre Dame's defense is so damn good. I'd love to say Notre Dame. I don't know if Notre Dame will win, but I'd love to say Notre Dame. And I think Ohio State. I think Ohio State wins that game. Ohio State's so good, dude.
I think it's going to be Notre Dame, Ohio State. Because I think Penn State's good, but like what Notre Dame's defense has done,
they've been incredible.
It's so good. And then who's It's crazy that Ohio State decided they were going to play old school Big Ten football against Michigan. Wasn't tough enough for it and got
Yeah.
killed at home. And then we're like, oh, we actually have 3 guys who are like the best receivers in college football. Let's just use them. And finally decided to throw the ball. Like, I don't know what they're doing, but now they're the best team in football right now. I hate saying that. Here's the thing. I am still a little bit concerned about Ohio State in that I feel like they could just regress into the old version of themselves at literally any second,
Right.
any point in this thing. And Texas is good. I feel like Texas has not played up to as good as they should be. And at some, like, based on how they've played lately, this should be Ohio State by multiple scores. But that, we all know how college football is, and Texas is a very talented team, and Ohio State has played poorly. So I think both of these teams are liable to just completely switch spots at any given moment.
Yeah.
And Sark's a better coach than Ryan Day.
Yeah. For sure. It's what's interesting to me is that because I went to Notre Dame this year and saw a game, it would be kind of cool to be like, oh, I saw the national champion Notre Dame football team play this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, not that really matters. But I was like, oh, that'd be kind of interesting wrinkle there. So, but we'll see. It's going to be, that's a week away, like you say. But that's going to be an interesting matchup. We'll see. I love the idea. I mean, all 4 teams that got a bye lost. That's crazy to me. Crazy that all 4 teams that got a bye lost. So,
what world?
So, anyways, it's an interesting 12 team, and to me, the 12 team people could say whatever they want about it. The 12 team playoff works, right? And if you're complaining about Cam Ward not playing, and you're complaining about other guys not playing, you should be advocating for the 12 team playoff. You should be advocating for more teams because those guys are actually going to play. You know what I mean? And so, what was that? The punter that had was it the punter or the backup quarterback that had like entered the transfer portal on one of the playoff teams? And I forget.
Yeah, Penn State's backup quarterback. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think it was Penn State's
because he had to because of the semester gap. Yeah,
it is
what I
what
will
it
say
is.
is this:
Right.
I like the 12-team playoff. I'd make one change, and that is that if you win your conference, you don't get a bye anymore. Or like the top 4 don't get buys or whatever it is. But what I would say is that if you win your conference, you're guaranteed a home game. So you get bumped up in the seeding a little bit. So in that case, what would it be? Who are the champions this year? Would have been Boise State.
Yeah,
Boise
Arizona State.
And Clemson would then become your 6, 7, and 8 seeds in a bracket. And everybody else just gets seeded by where they'd be in the rankings.
No, not Clemson, Georgia.
No, Clemson, because Georgia was already in the top 4. It's like Georgia and Oregon are in the top 4, so they get the bye anyway.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But the teams who don't get the bye, who aren't good enough for the bye, you still get a home game if you win your conference. So you're going to get Indiana at Boise State as a game, or whoever at Arizona State, Ohio State at Clemson. Yeah, I think I believe it would have been who was the other team that was in.
But didn't Georgia win the SEC?
Yeah, so they get a bye.
Yeah, but then Clemson wouldn't have a home game because they didn't win the SEC. Oh, Clemson's in the ACC now. Jesus Christ! Right, that's right.
Clemson's been in the ACC.
Clemson's been in the ACC. I know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm thinking there.
So I believe I had done the thing on it. So it would have been Ohio State at Clemson. It would have been Indiana at Boise State. It would have been SMU at Notre Dame, and then Tennessee at Arizona State would be the other one.
That would have been cool. I like that.
If you win your conference, then you get that little reward of you're either getting a bye or you get the home game and the added stuff that comes with that. So if you're, that a lot of times that 8 seed, that 9-8 game is going to be, at this point it's Clemson because it's weird, but that 8 seed's probably going to be a team like Boise State most seasons. So you're going to get a really high quality game there, which should be a lot of fun.
That's interesting. I like that idea. Instead of giving them the bye, give them a home game. It's cool.
You could reseed after that, or you want. I don't care how you go from there.
Well, because I think too, even though they got the bye, they didn't get a home game.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
exactly.
Which is interesting.
If we want to see, if you're a college football fan, I would much rather see a power conference team have to go to Boise State in a first round than Boise State to get a bye. I think that's way more entertaining. And also the way it worked out with this is that you ended up with teams in that were in the 5 and 6 spots in the playoff, but were really the 3 and 4 teams overall hosting games against teams that barely got in. So of course those games aren't going to be competitive. It's a top 10 team at home. Like
Right.
that's hard to beat. This gives you a little bit more volatility, and you're going to have a team that was more accomplished in the regular season, but is probably a worse team hosting a team that's very talented that clearly had problems in the regular season if they're not a top 4 team. That's where
cool.
your Tennessees, your Indianas, your what do you call it, Ohio State's.
Right.
Well, Ohio State didn't end up there. They would be in the top 4.
Yeah, but still.
In this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where those teams end up.
That's cool. I like it.
Actually, no, Ohio State wouldn't be. Ohio State would be hosting. Yeah, they were the 5, I think.
They were 6.
Oh, no, so they would be on the road in this. They'd be the 9. Oh, yeah, they'd be at Clemson. That's what it was. That's a great game.
Yeah, that'd be a fun game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a cool idea. I like it. All right, let's get the hell out of here. We've been here almost 2 hours. So, All right, thanks for listening, everyone. Appreciate it. We'll be back Sunday night breaking down the final game of the season until we get into full draft mode. We're gonna do the same thing we did last year with mock drafts coming at you fast and furious every few weeks. So anyways, well, that'll do it for us tonight. Be good to each other. Go Pats.